How do you solve a multi-step inequality? This video is for task 1.9. Make sure this title is at the top of your paper and make sure you give the description of what task 1.9 is. Okay, here's a review of what your paper should look like as you're taking notes from the video. Remember, your section title is up top and your video titles will go in the left-hand column, followed by your notes in the right-hand column and your summary at the very end. By the end of this video, we are going to answer the question, how do we solve inequalities with multiple steps? Here's a graphic organizer of an inequality. 3p plus 2 divided by 4 is less than 5. And if we just had the variable p, we're going to talk about the operations on that variable. So first we multiply the p by 3. Then we're going to add a 2 and then divide by 4. And as you can see, here are the steps that I just told you that happen on the variable. Now we're going to use the inverse operations and go in reverse order to solve for the variable p. So we would first multiply by 4, then subtract 2, and then divide by 3. This is kind of like what you're doing for every problem in your head, but I laid it out for you so that you understand the certain operations you need to use to solve for the variable. So now that we know the operations to solve, let's go ahead and apply those operations to solve and isolate the variable p. Remember, we're using the same type of idea, same type of concept from chapter 2. It's just instead of an equal sign, we have an inequality symbol. So the first step, and I'll go ahead and write up our arrow again. Remember, we're going in this order. So my first step is to multiply both sides by 4. So multiply both sides by 4 here. The 4's are going to reduce to 1 on the right hand side, and then 4 times 5 is going to give us 20, which is greater than 3p plus 2. Next step, we are going to subtract 2 to both sides, so I'm going to minus 2 here and minus 2 here, and I get 18 is greater than 3p, and these 2's reduce to 0. And then the last step would be divide by 3, so divide both sides by 3. Since we're dividing by a positive number, I don't need to worry about switching my inequality symbol. So I get 6 is greater than p. But I've taught you that you should always write your variable on the left-hand side. So we're just going to put the p on the left-hand side. The pointed part is towards the p. The arrow's pointing towards the p. And then I have 6. And this would be my final correct answer. I can also use the arrow to help me graph on a number line. You're probably wondering, what would I use inequalities for? Well, I have a real-world example here for you. Let's say that you want to start your own rap label, or you want to start your own band, and you get a donation of $500 to your group. Well, CDs cost about $3.50 plus $3 for each CD. So you have to, you can answer this question, up to how many CDs can you make with the $500 donation? Well, you can create a multiple step inequality to solve and find out how many CDs you can make with that $500 donation for your group or your band. We're going to do that in class sometime later on this week, so keep this idea in mind. We already solved one multiple step inequality, so here are 2 more examples for you. The first one is example A. Notice I have the steps on the right hand side in blue for you to write down. But let's go ahead and solve this multiple step inequality. Now notice I'm going to have to apply the distributive property first. Anytime we see parentheses, we do that. So I'm going to distribute the 2 to the x and to the 4. I'm going to just rewrite the 3 because I can't combine it with anything or move it over to the next side yet. And then I get plus 2 times x is 2x, and 2 multiplied by 4 is 8. So plus 8 is greater than 3. Now before I begin to move things over to the other side, I must first combine like terms. So let's identify our like terms here in a different color. We know that we have the 3 and the 8 are like terms, and there's no other like term to go with the 2x. So now I'm going to go ahead and combine the 3 and the 8 to get 11 plus 2x is greater than 3. Next, I'll subtract 11 from both sides and get 2x is greater than negative 8. And I'll go ahead and finish the problem over here so I don't write on my number line. Divide both sides by 2, and x is going to be greater than negative 4. Go ahead and answer this question for me in your notes. Why did I not switch the inequality symbol at the very end? Take a minute and think about it. Okay, now let's go ahead and graph our solution. It's going to have to be a open circle at negative 4. And we want all values for x that are greater than negative 4, so that is going to be to the right of the graph. Okay, here's our final example, example B. We're going to solve the inequality and graph the solution. And remember, this is multiple steps. Looks like this one's only going to take us 2 steps. The other one took us a few more. So let's go ahead and begin solving this inequality. We're going to need to subtract 8 to both sides, minus 8. So this cancels out to 0, and I get negative 3y is greater than or equal to 21. And then I need to divide both sides by negative 3. So these negative 3's, these negative 3's reduce to 1, and I get just a y. I must switch my inequality symbol. Why is that? Why must I switch my inequality symbol? 21 divided by negative 3 gives me negative 7. So remember, I had to switch that inequality symbol. Write in your notes why I had to do that. And now that my inequality is solved for, my variable is isolated, I can go ahead and graph the solution. So I'm going to go to negative 7, which is in between negative 8 and negative 6 right here. And I'm going to do a closed circle. And since I want all values that are less than negative 7, that's going to be to the left of the graph. It's going this way. Okay, I hope that this video was simple for you. The examples were clear and that I went slow enough for you to understand the material. If you have questions, write them in your notes and ask me tomorrow in class, or type them in on sophia.org at the very end of this video. Also, if something was confusing, I would pause and rewind and rewatch the video again and write down some additional notes in my Cornell notes. Okay, see you in class.